Horses.
Hello everyone, I can't stay long. I gotta go in 5 minutes. Gotta go in 5 minutes. But as you guys can see, I can't stay too long, guys. Hello to everyone. Love you all. Love my Patreon. Love my GoFundMe. We're gonna get the book out. We're gonna go crazy. It's all gonna be great. Can't stay too long. I have to go in 4 minutes, unfortunately. When you see me this calm, when you see me this calm, I'm gonna hide the chats because I can't stay. But you guys know I love you all. Um, I'm at the point now where once you become hit too many times, and someone might know someone who's been in a situation when you hit too many times with something, you start to become numb. And most of you, my top followers who knew me from a few months ago when I had 10 people and I spoke about all the things that will come true, and I based that upon the collapse of the Western Society of Lebanon in the 80s. People said, well, maybe you're wrong. And I said, well, maybe I was, but I was being polite because I'm not wrong about this, unfortunately, as much as I'd like to think so. My suggestion is for people to emigrate, because what I see happening in Western Europe is week by week, day by day, exactly what was going on in Lebanon. And just to remind the new people of my predictions that I made back with my original guests back in the day, Dougie and my other originals. I said that there were 40 years of attacks by the minority, and the minority in a cinema, for example, can ruin the whole movie. You only need a few people. And that minority will continue to make those attacks, and that's already done. Once you crack a hole in the jar and the water starts coming out, or you have a house underwater, when there's one crack, the water starts flooding in. It's over, right? The minority was powered in Lebanon by the communists and the fake leftists, the authoritarians. And together, it took about 40 years, but together they were able to then finally crack open the country and turn it into, what people think of it, And that was the end of the civilization over there at that time. What will happen, as we see, is the rise of dictators. This will continue to happen. In the end, after 40 years of those attacks, what we saw was a snap. And I said that before. 1982 was the first snap when the ultra right wing were born. After not appearing anywhere since 1940s Germany, they came out and started to massacre good Muslims, bad Muslims, liberal Christians, anyone. They just started massacring. But see, by this time you could get out. See, for example, my father got out when Lebanon was still like Britain today, when it was still a majority Western country, but a lot of this fake business was starting to pop out. There'd been terrorist attacks for about 20 years. Pretty much like Britain today. That's when my father got out. Gad Sad got out at the same time. My grandfather, my mum's father, got out a bit before that because he was from a massively right-wing Christian area, and he could see what was happening before anyone else, when everyone was still calling him a bigot and all that stuff. So he got out in the 60s. And all of them proved to safely get out whilst... what's that right-wing lady? I forget her name. The Lebanese one who's for Act for America. Brigitte Jibrail. Her name's Brigitte Jibrail or something, or Gabrielle Brigitte, or whatever. Anyway, she was stuck at the war, and she was in the southern part of Lebanon, which is the part where the massive fights between the Christian minority in the south and the communists really took flight with the help of the Palestinian Muslims who turned on their Palestinian Christian brothers. And it became, as we know, what it's going to happen in Spain, in France, in the UK, in Holland. It's already going to happen. There's no way around it now. You're not going to reverse the uneducated, inculcated authoritarians. It's not going to happen. It's already giving birth, as we see now, slight contractions. It might be born in the next 5 to 10 years, but that's not that long. When you look in history books, 10 years is a nothing. It's a turn of a page. Right? That's 10 years, that's 50 years, it's done. The intertribal warfare, as we know, happens, as we spoke about on Gabsnack with the Anasazi, and it'll just devolve. Now, the only thing that will hold it together temporarily is the dictator. Now, why people in the US always asked why, not all people, but in the US they asked, why does the Middle East have dictators? Well, you're about to find out why they have dictators, and it's exactly for this reason. One guy said in Syria they throw gays off the roof. No, that's not true. In Syria, they're pluralistic, and the reason for that is because the dictator would murder anyone who stepped out of line. And why does Egypt have al-Sisi? Why did they have Mubarak? Why did they have Al-Jamal, I forget his name, Al-Jamal, oh Jesus, I'm forgetting my history. It was back in the 70s. He attacked Israel. He was the only one who was successful, and he surprised Golda Meir, and she lost the election because of him. Forget his name. Anyway, I'm sure someone remembers who he is. Jamal Abdel Nasser, Jamal Abdel Nasser. Jamal Abdel Nasser, the guy who died of a mysterious heart attack, and then Anwar Sadat came in and made peace with Israel. Then he was assassinated, shot in the head by the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. So the point is that we've already seen this. You know, I was born into this. My parents were born into this. I keep saying it's going to keep happening, and it keeps happening. And what did I say this week? This is the last thing I'm going to say. This week I said that the reason the West won't learn is because instead of realizing where the real problem is, they're going to turn on Trump, right? And what exactly happened? It was Trump's worst week. Did they not turn on him? So the point is that let's assume they got rid of Trump, right? Let's assume. What will happen, as I've said multiple times this week and over the last few months, is that it will get worse. You'll get an even more powerful dictator, like infinitely more powerful. And it's happened. Not only that, we saw in Iraq, we saw with what's his name, Saddam, and then after that, now without a dictator, we see intertribal warfare. We have in the Philippines Duterte, and we had Milosevic in Serbia because of the rise of the Islamic violence against Serbia. So then he came out and started massacring innocent Muslims and good Muslims and bad Muslims. He massacred everyone, and it was only stopped by America. But once America implodes, then there'll be no one to stop everything. So when America talks about wanting to police the world, if it goes bankrupt, there's not going to be any policing of anything. It's going to turn into chaos again, and probably China and Russia will rise. This is why in Lebanon most Christians and most Muslims as well actually support Russia doing what they're doing. And when I say Muslims, I mean the non-Sunni Muslims, so the Shia, the Hezbollah type of people. All of them, plus most of the Christians, all love Russia because Russia is the only entity protecting them from the American-backed, Saudi-backed, well, as they perceive it to be, destruction of Lebanon and the assistance of ISIS in the region. So once again, I see the same thing in Spain. We see the same thing in France. Those who remain in France, the so-called patriots, will be the ones who stay the longest and will be there as the country collapses. The rest of people will slowly emigrate. So emigration really is the plan. If you haven't heard my predictions before, I say go back and look at my earliest scopes from like months and months ago. I think a lot of them are no longer on here. You have to go to Gabflix on that YouTube channel. You got to sign up or whatever to go see it. But yeah, that's it really. That's all I had to say. I got to go. We can talk more about it later if anyone wants to DM me on Twitter or Facebook at Gabsmacked, and we will address this in a more coherent fashion. Love you all as always, and yeah, emigrate, man. Go to Poland, go to Czechoslovakia if you're in Europe.